This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
When you have experienced a traumatic or difficult birth, it can impact so much that follows. This week, I am joined by an incredible mum of two little girls, Laura. Laura is hugely inspirational, and the journey that she's been on is one I am really looking forward to sharing.
My first birth was an induction. It resulted after so long, me having a bleed and then going into theatre.
With your first birth with Isla's, if you could kind of describe the way that it felt to you in like a few words, what would those words be?
It was so positive, so empowering. I found strength that I didn't know I had.
Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. When you have experienced a traumatic or difficult birth, it can impact so much that follows, not just in the immediate postpartum, but beyond that too. And the prospect of a future pregnancy and birth can raise a heap of new thoughts and feelings. This week, I am joined by an incredible mum of two little girls, Laura. Laura is hugely inspirational, and the journey that she's been on is one I am really looking forward to sharing. When I met Laura, she was in her first trimester, battling the depths of hyperemesis and impacted by the aftermath of her first birth experience. That was really traumatic. I am beyond delighted that Laura's second birth was the birth she describes as her dream birth. And she's kindly come on the podcast to talk about her journey, which we hope will inspire and reassure other parents navigating pregnancy after birth trauma too. So welcome, Laura and Etta. How are you doing?
We're all right. We've got a very wriggly baby though, so we might hear some grunts and groaning from.
That's what we love. That's what we love. It is all about Etta after all, isn't it, this chat? So it's only fair she gets her voice in as well. Now, Laura, I remember when we first spoke. In fact, I think you had to leave our call, didn't you, to have to go and be sick, which is ironic because now that's going to be Etta on today's one.
Hopefully we'll have no sick today, but I can't promise that.
No, there's no guarantees working with babies. That is what we love. The realism of motherhood. That's what we're all about, Laura. Can you take us back a little bit to, and I know this is always really difficult to talk about, Laura, but take us back a little bit to your first birth experience and I guess kind of what made it so difficult and so traumatic for you and your husband, and kind of how that shaped your first postnatal experience.
Yeah, so, well, the first, my first birth was an induction, which was quite a long labour in the end, with, lots of stages, lots of, I feel like, choices that weren't really choices. It resulted after so long being me having a bleed and then going into theatre, at which point they topped up my epidural and I had a high spinal block. So I think when I look back on it, there was just like a lot of lack of control over that, over the whole process. Partly because I didn't know what to expect, what choices I had. And then obviously just at the end where things kind of got quite serious, it was quite a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
And then following that, I would say I had quite a lot of a blocked like memory. So there's quite a bit, it's quite hazy for the first few days after having my first daughter. Partly because of like the trauma brain and just like how you like exclude parts, and I think partly by choice as well.
Yeah.
I find it quite hard to process. And I definitely had triggers after the event. So like, for example, a certain song that was playing in the theatre at a time like became like quite a trigger for me, and then obviously was bringing back flashbacks. It just ended up with me just trying to bury it.
Yeah.
It was the easiest way to deal with it was just to kind of like almost ignore that what had happened, and just like, I had a newborn to focus on. Like, you have to get past that, and the only way was just to ignore what had happened, which wasn't the best idea in hindsight.
But such a common one, Laura, because you get caught, you're kept busy, aren't you, by a baby? So it's the perfect distraction in so many ways. And we'll come to kind of when you reach that point of actually, I can't keep burying it. But one of the things that you mentioned being, I guess, a bit of an underlying theme with Isla's birth was around choices that didn't feel like choices and that kind of lack of control. Why do you think the choices didn't feel like choices to you at that time, Laura?
That time round, I was definitely very much of the opinion that the medical professionals knew best in all situations, especially better than me. So as soon as they suggested anything, I just basically said yes. And then add in, you know, tiredness and exhaustion and all of that, and pain. And you just kind of, at that point, I was definitely just going, yeah, you say yes, I'll say okay, and I'll sign the papers to. Like, I remember signing the papers, going into theatre, and not really knowing what I was signing.
Yeah.
I would have signed anything at that point, I think.
Which is such a vulnerable place to be in on such a big day, isn't it? And I know you said you kind of got caught up in life with Isla and, you know, navigating all of those milestones, and then fell pregnant again.
Yeah.
Was that the point of I can't bury my head anymore, or did it happen before that?
I think we'd discussed it before, of like, if we're going to have another, we're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But obviously just kept putting it off. And then when we found out that we were pregnant again, you know, obviously there was the initial overjoy of emotion of being pregnant, and then it was very quickly followed by, can I do this again? Is it going to happen again? We need to fix this. Like, we need things to be different this time. I can't go down that same path again. And straight away, it was almost instant that we were just like we need to address this now and not leave it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's such a brave thing to do, because the easiest thing is to bury your head, isn't it? And feel like you've got a long time left in pregnancy, but actually, you know how quickly that time passes, and that change doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a matter of days and weeks. It does take months.
Yeah.
How in that kind of initial period? Because I suppose, you know, you plan a pregnancy, you peel a stick, you find out you're pregnant, and we anticipate this kind of elation or happiness. How did your kind of experience with Isla impact that initial we're pregnant again feeling and those emotions for your family?
I definitely still had the elation. Like, I wanted nothing more than to have another one. But it's just the dread, like and with having one already, it was trying to then hide like those almost negative emotions from a little one. Like, obviously she didn't know at first, but you're having to put on the same brave face that you do every day with them. And then when she did find out, like, everything's going to be fine, like, you're going to tell her, like we were trying to tell Isla, that, you know, she's got a new baby coming into the family and it's going to be amazing. And then you're like, but I need to make it amazing. Like, I need to make it positive. I can't have her seeing me doubting it or, you know, questioning it, because then she's going to worry that, or maybe actually it's quite a scary thing that's about to happen. And that's what we didn't want. We wanted her to feel really settled and comfortable with the change that was about to come.
Oh my goodness, Laura, you're so strong. Honestly, you're so strong. With your first birth with Isla's, if you could kind of describe the way that it felt to you in like a few words, what would those words be?
Terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I couldn't breathe was the biggest thing for me. So that's like the major word that sticks in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just, you know, it's not what I had envisioned in my head of this like magical moment. I didn't get that kind of like magical moment of meeting her and stuff, unfortunately.
I hear you. And I remember, Laura, when you came into the YPJ family and I was introducing you to the team, and I was like, so this is Laura and we're going to transform her life because she's still dealing with trauma. She's about to go through it again, and we need to make sure she comes out of this like an absolute powerhouse. Because you'd made such brave steps with hyperemesis as well. So like you had the odds all against you. Let's be honest. Like at the beginning, you had those odds against you. You were flawed with hyperemesis, really poorly, still navigating trauma, pregnant again. But you had this, I could feel when I first spoke to her, you had this fire of like, but I'm not just going to accept a fate of a repeat experience. I am going to take the reins and take control. And how would you describe Etta's birth, your second birth?
It was like polar opposite. Like, to be honest, I knew that I was going to change my second birth and it was going to be different. But I was so prepared for things to be like, I don't know, to go more south than they did. And it was the most positive experience I could have had. Like, I remember messaging you afterwards and saying, like, I feel like I've got a superpower. Yeah. Because it just was so positive, so empowering. I found strength that I didn't know I had. Yeah, something I'm really proud of.
Oh my goodness, you should be so proud of it because it didn't happen by accident, Laura. Like you didn't just get lucky and all of a sudden your second birth was like that absolute dream. It happened because you lifted the lid on the trauma box, you took action, you made sure that you were so comprehensively prepared for whatever was coming your way. So yes, let's increase the chance of achieving all those things that we want to happen, but equally let's unpick all of those things that we don't want to happen so that we've got plans around those as well. You didn't just spend a few hours looking at some generic stuff. You really dedicated yourself to changing your journey. So you should feel immensely proud because this was because you did it. Like you put the work in, you took the reins to make sure that all of those feelings of lack of control last time, I mean, you were like a control powerhouse this time, weren't you?
Yeah, it definitely felt like all choice was mine this time.
Absolutely. Like female empowerment at its finest, or especially with two girls as well, like role modeling to them what this experience should be like.
But because they were absolutely my driver. Like they had to be that. If I expect them to grow up and I want them to be strong and show everybody what they're capable of, then I can only do that by leading by example.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And society's really good, I think, especially in the pregnancy space, of allowing us to almost fall into a bit of a trap of naivety. And I think that can be really damaging, especially in first births where it is all new, isn't it? Like you have no idea what you're stepping into. And when the kind of society leads us to believe that actually we can just completely go with the flow and we have this idea of naivety and we're in this place of we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
It can lead us in this really, really vulnerable place, which is, you know, probably where you were in that first experience. But actually when we shift that and when we decide that actually we're going to have the power, completely changes the game.
My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in, to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like it's almost made worse because people don't talk about their birth stories, negative ones particularly. You know, it's just one of those kind of like, I think sometimes a taboo subject of, you know, you'll ask how the baby is, but would you ask how the labour was? What really happened? Is there anything that they would do differently? And I think without having those conversations, then we just presume everything because of our, you know, positive minds, just presume everything's going to be fine if we just jump straight in and, you know, people have done it before me, so I can do it and it's going to be fine. But yeah, maybe it needs to be talked about a bit more and have it as more of a learning experience than just you know, a day out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, birth is such a massive time in our life. Like, your two polar opposite experiences, and we'll talk about how that's impacted you postpartum this time in a moment, but they impact, I think, us as women for the rest of our life. And we can't plan our birth in a few hours or a week. It really does take layers, and it can't be generalized. Like, we are so individual. Like, your journeys have been, I know you've had so many twists and turns to navigate with your little people, Laura, and it just, none of that has been generic, has it? Like, there is no one size fits all to birth. It's just not how it works, but it's how society tries to tell us it's going to work.
Yeah, I like, you speak to other mums, nobody's like, babies are the same, nobody's births are the same. No, it's all just, you've got to do your own thing. But you've got to be ready to kind of take whatever is thrown at you, rather than just thinking nothing's going to get thrown at you, because I think that's when you get in for a shock.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a rarity. I know, I mean, your birth the second time because you had that control and had navigated some difficult choices. I mean, it was that picture perfect birth at the end, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It was, but I was fully prepared for it not to be.
Exactly that.
And I think that that's what made it almost, you know, even better, because like, I would have been okay if it hadn't have gone so smoothly in the end. We were ready for whatever was to be thrown at us.
Oh, but yeah, the cherry on the top was, and I know you said like it was that dream birth that you really always wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's just, it makes me so happy, Laura, because I remember when I first spoke to you and I said, like, we can achieve this, we can have this positive experience. And I think when you're sat on the other side, you kind of want to believe it, but actually really trusting in it can feel really tricky, can't it? It's a massive leap of faith to actually believe you can get that, and to feel that, you know, deep in your soul that actually this is a possible journey for you, can feel really, really tricky.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to get your hopes up and then be disappointed. So you kind of like, I have a little bit of trust, but let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see. And then boom, she smashed it. What do you think, Laura, kind of factors that you feel perhaps contributed to such a positive experience this time round compared to your first?
Yeah, it was definitely, gosh. I mean, the biggest thing was the work that was put into unpick my first time and prepare like myself for doing it again, but almost preparing the way that I wish I had the first time round.
Okay.
So yeah, I had to deal with the previous incidents, but I also had to get myself ready mentally for what was coming, and how really everybody should be kind of educating themselves and being ready for what's to come. I think knowledge is everything at this point. And then once I'd had that kind of knowledge, the biggest thing for me was advocating for myself. All the decisions that I made throughout my pregnancy as well as labour.
Yeah.
They felt like they were mine. I felt like I was in control. It was on my terms. Like, I was obviously listening to the advice of the consultants and the midwives and everything. But at the end of the day, I was still going with what my gut was saying was the right thing at that right time. So some of them, it wasn't that I was saying no, it was just saying yes, but in a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe just not now. And that was huge. And that was like so empowering for me. And yeah, I would just say, like, being open to all options. I definitely went into it, you know, the very start of that second pregnancy, saying this time, no doors are closed. Whereas first time round, it, you know, you just, I think everybody wants their, like, no, I don't want this, I don't want that. Which means you close the doors and then you leave your options really limited for when things don't kind of go the way that you want them to. Whereas this time I had a preference for the way that I wanted. Like, I would have preferred some over others, but actually, you know, I still would have had another epidural had I been in so much pain that I wanted it. It wasn't off the cards, even though I'd had a high spinal block before. I wasn't averse to having a cesarean. Yeah, anything really was on the cards, just as long as it was under my terms.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what, Laura? That's so powerful what you just said there, in terms of the first time you had very much like blanket rules of I'm not having this, I'm not having that, and actually ended up with a very medical intervention, cascade, traumatic birth. The second time where you were like, actually, I'm really open to all this medical intervention if I need it. I know it's not black and white. There's a massive grey area that I want to understand and unpick and explore, but I'm open to whatever might crop up, all those twists and turns, and actually had the birth that was probably what featured on that first birth preference list. But you were able to join those dots because you had that information that was crucially so missing last time, because it wasn't what you wanted, so you didn't think about it. Is that
the first time I was literally, I had the opposite of everything I said that I didn't. When I look back at my first birth plan, everything I said I didn't want, I got, and everything I wanted, I didn't get. So you could have just like basically turned it upside down, and that was why.
Yeah. And I think when we don't look at the things that we don't want, it means when they crop up, like you said, you have this complete lack of control, and you're just saying yes to stuff because you have no idea what really are your choices and what is the information and how to navigate that.
Yeah, and I think it's just really important for it to be, okay, I may not prefer it, but how can I make it positive? If it's not my, you know, top choice, how can I turn that into a positive? How can I make it something that I'm comfortable with still doing? And that was probably the biggest thing for me, was plans in place for my less preferred options.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that. You know that I shout that from the rooftops all the time, Laura, in YPJ. We have so many calls, don't we, talking about let's make plans for the stuff that no one wants.
Yeah.
Because the other stuff's easy. Like, those birth plans aren't the ones that serve us. It's the ones that are the more complicated stuff, the less sexy stuff, the stuff that people don't really want to talk about. That's the stuff that matters, isn't it? That's the stuff that steers us away from trauma if we address it properly and plan for it.
Yeah, and it's a bonus if you can just throw away those plans at the end of it because you haven't used them. But
exactly,
if not, then, you know, you've got the power at that point in time.
It's just not a time to take risks with, is it? Like, we have this one shot. Let's not risk not understanding something that could then completely throw a curveball. It's just, it's not worth any gambles with birth, I don't think. I know you've had lots of kind of multifaceted support, I suppose, Laura, because like you've spoken about, this wasn't just about planning for Esther's birth. This was about unpicking the previous trauma and working through that kind of alongside planning for this birth. So emotional, medical, informational, physical, so many different kind of avenues of support. What do you think made the biggest difference to you in preparing for this journey this time?
It's hard to pick one thing. Like, from, I guess there's from two perspectives. Like, from the trauma side of things, it really was like, I had to face it. I had to, you know, take the counselling, and I had to face my fears. Like, I put myself in a position before the time came, so I was doing hospital visits and going back into the theatre and things like that, to really make myself uncomfortable. I basically had to make myself comfortable with the uncomfortable, before the time was, so that I knew that when it came to it, I could do that and then not have that kind of emotional response that I didn't want, keep those lovely oxytocins going. But so that was huge. Like, I don't think I could have done it without dealing with the trauma. But also, I think for me, the biggest thing was just the education piece. I needed to really understand all the processes so that I could put the plans in place, and I knew what was happening at every stage. So instead of it just being my body's doing this or this is happening, we're having an induction, I understood what that meant, rather than just going, I don't really know what's going on, but something's changing right now. And education piece was just absolutely huge. Like, I'd definitely say that people should educate themselves a lot more.
And I guess, ironically, both your births did start with an induction of labour. So it's not even like often when I speak to families that have had previous trauma, if things started, I'm just throwing induction out there as an example because I know that was part of your first journey, that actually if they've had an induction and it's been negative, they're like, well, I just need to avoid induction and then it'll be okay. But actually you had a wonderful induction that resulted in that beautiful water birth. The intervention's not necessarily the barrier, it's that wider understanding, isn't it?
Yeah, and I had an induction, but this time I trusted my body a lot more.
And understood your body, right?
Yeah, understood it and trusted that actually it did know what it was doing, and I understood what it was doing as well, which was huge because one of the biggest things for me was that transition stage, and I actually had your voice in my head at that point in time where I was saying, like, no, I can't do this, like shaking my head going, no, I want out now, and all I could hear in my head was you just saying, that means you're in transition, that means you're nearly there, like that's the best thing. And I was like, okay, actually I've recognized what's happening right now, I can do this, and I know where I am and I know what's coming next. And that's just one example of really understanding what's going on.
Oh, I love that, Laura. I love that. And I'm sorry that I crept into your head. I've been in your head all of pregnancy, and then in birth, you still couldn't shake me off. But
it's like you were in the room, Pip.
Oh, I wish I could have been. I would have loved it. We were in your pocket. It's almost as good. In terms of your postnatal experiences, because clearly, I mean, I didn't obviously know you postnatally with Isla, but the fact that you were still dealing with the trauma when you conceived Etta tells me that postnatal experience was probably very different to the Laura that I've known postnatally this time. How did they differ?
I probably hid a lot of it. So I don't know, maybe to family and friends that they wouldn't have noticed, because it was very much, I've got to get on, I've got a family, and people don't really want to talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it. So I hid a lot of it, but it didn't mean it wasn't there. But it does creep out in, I think, into yourself. So even, and I didn't realize this until I was having therapy, I did have PTSD from it, and it actually was impacting more of my day-to-day than I'd realized, because I hadn't processed it, because I hadn't given it the time and space that it needed. Obviously now I've dealt with that, and I'm so glad I dealt with that, and had anything, even remotely, not negative, but just like not satisfactory happened this time around, I would have wanted to deal with it there and then, just to give it the time and space to kind of allow it to process in my brain and then move past that. Sorry, I've got a very wriggly, just curled up in the ball.
She's like, you're talking about me, Mum. I need to get my say in.
Okay.
I love that.
This time it's, well, we've had enough other stuff to be dealing with, but I haven't had to give it a thought, and actually I've had a lot of strength that I'm able to draw from my birth. Like I don't doubt myself as much because, you know, things get hard. I've been through hard things. In fact, I've been through really hard things.
Yeah.
And I can do them again.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I think is so golden about the opportunity of birth, Laura, is exactly what you've just said. Like, it impacts everything. When life's going to throw us 1,000 different curveballs, we never know quite what's coming our way and what we're going to have to navigate. But actually having those feelings in ourselves of our, you know, our confidence, our strength, our capability, it's not just about that one day, is it? Like, that is literally going to stay ingrained in you for the rest of your life. And even more powerfully, we can pass that down to generations. We all want our children to feel capable and empowered and have a voice. And it starts with us, right? Like, we have to role model that.
Yeah, and although like my first was quite traumatic, I'm proud of the journey as well that I've been on. So it's not forgotten because although it's been like I've managed to replace it with a more positive experience, that journey of kind of really empowering myself, and I think people could do that for their first as well as their second, has been everything. To just show yourself the strength that you do have that you didn't think you had, and then just it really is a power to have that kind of strength that you didn't realize.
Oh, honestly, you're so inspirational, Laura. I wonder if I could just ask you 2 more questions. So, for parents who are pregnant again after a previous traumatic birth, what kind of words of advice or encouragement would you want to offer based on your experience through that?
Definitely get help, and as soon as possible. Don't delay. Like, even if you're not pregnant again, get help.
Yeah.
Because I wish I'd not delayed it until pregnancy. Educate yourself so that you can understand the options that are open to you, because then you can advocate for yourself, and that really is like education and advocacy for yourself is I really do think it's key to having a positive experience, even when, you know, things aren't going quite the way that you'd planned them or you had envisioned in your head. I think you can deal with them quite well. The one thing I wish I taught myself was not to let my previous experience creep doubt on myself, on my own abilities. I'm a lot stronger than I realised, and it did cause doubt in that, and I shouldn't have listened to it really. And yeah, things can definitely be different the second time. Absolutely be different. No doubt about it. You can completely turn it upside down as long as you put in the work. Yeah,
and I think that's the honest thing, isn't it, Laura? Like, it's not going to happen by accident, and you do have to put in the work. And I don't want to take that away from you because, you know, I've watched you from the early weeks absolutely dedicate yourself and put in lots of work, even, you know, whilst navigating work, another child, hyperemesis. Like, please don't think that Laura has been a stay-at-home mum that has done nothing other than just focus on pregnancy. She has navigated all those other obstacles, time, resource, energy, all these other obstacles that we've all got in life. But actually, if you want it bad enough, it is possible. And I don't want to take away from the amount of work that you have put into this, Laura, because I know it's not been easy, and it's really brave taking those first leaps of faith as well. One other question. What advice would you give to a first-time mum listening? Because I know we often say that in hindsight, if you've had a difficult birth, you kind of think, and you said this before, like, I wish I'd prepared like I did for my second birth, like my first. And so it's always really tricky when people haven't had that lived experience yet of quite how important this time in your life is. What would you like to say to first-time parents?
It's so hard, isn't it? Because nothing can prepare you. I think no matter how much you prepare, you'll never really be prepared for that experience until you've been there. But you can just try and understand your options, and don't be afraid to ask questions as well. Because as much as it is about kind of, you know, learning about your body and about the different kind of types of labour and stages of labour and things, that is really important. But also, when you're in that room at the hospital, or just even talking to people about, labour and post-birth, ask questions. If you don't understand something, like, just ask, or something doesn't sit right. You've obviously really kind of, at YPJ, we talk a lot about the brain tool and using that to make decisions, and that really did help. Because you can't just, it's not just here's a question, here's an answer. You do need to think about actually what's important to me and how does it sit for me. And sometimes you don't always have the answers, and you just need to take that time to go and find the answers. And time is definitely, like, pause and reflect is everything.
Yeah, I love that.
Because you don't have to rush into any decisions.
No. And nothing's black and white. I think it's really easy for us to sometimes think, like, you either have to be induced or you don't. But actually, there's a massive grey area. And I know a lot of the work that you did was sort of tiptoeing through that grey area and actually finding out what worked for you, because this is never generic. Like, there is not going to be what works for, I don't know, great Aunt June down the road is not necessarily going to work for you at all. There are so many variables. And I think that's why, like you said, Laura, that birth plan that is very this, and this, or we're going to avoid X, Y, and Z, or not thinking about the things that are less favourable to you, really isn't helpful. Because if everyone has the same birth plan, everyone wants the same stuff, clearly not everyone achieves it. Yeah. And there's this big, area in between that we have to unpick. And I think that's often the kind of trap that I find first-time parents slipping into, because we oversimplify it in society. And I think sometimes we're scared about scaring women, but actually we are strong, empowered females. We deserve to be treated with honesty and have the real information and not have stuff sugar-coated, because then if that happens to us, where does that leave us? Like, makes us so vulnerable.
Yeah, you definitely become scared of, giving a negative story in case actually you put the fear of God into somebody. But that's just an opportunity that you can kind of prepare yourself for those things. It doesn't mean they are going to happen, but just actually, this is what could happen and this is what you could do about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Laura, you honestly phenomenal. When I got the message to say that Etta had been born, and that picture of you cradling her in the water, I mean, that's just such a powerful image, especially when you understand your backstory and what it's taken you to get there. I honestly absolutely welled up. I was just full of just immense pride at you, because I knew the journey you've been on. I know how brave you had been to actually be like, right, let's address all this. Let's confront everything that is so easy to kind of just keep silencing and keep pushing aside. And actually, I just knew the impact that was going to have on you for the rest of your life, and was just, so elated for you. So thank you for sharing your journey, not only with us in YPJ, because we absolutely adore having you in the family, but also for sharing your journey on the podcast as well, so that other parents listening that are feeling in that place that you were know that there is light, you can achieve that experience that you really want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything can be turned around. I think birth and non-birth things, like, you can really make a difference to your story and how you tell it as well.
Yeah. Oh, Laura, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And Etta, you're an absolute dream. Love her.
She's snoring. I don't know if you can hear her.
I can't, but I wish we could. That's super cute. If you have listened to this birth story, enjoyed it, and feel that you are ready to really embrace and dedicate yourself to having the most informed, supported, and empowered journey, and want to see if we may be able to support you in YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey, please drop me a Instagram DM at midwife_pip, or get in touch on my email, pip@midwifepip.com, and let's chat through things and see if we might be a good match for each other. I hope you've enjoyed listening,
and wishing you all the best on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond.